Welcome to the Legally Speaking podcast.
You are now listening to season 6 of the show.
I'm your host, Rob Hanna. This week, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the wonderful Jessie Engelhart. Jessie graduated from Tilburg Law School in 2016, continuing her legal education in Madrid, Rio de Janeiro, and Barcelona. Then, in 2019, she passed the Spanish bar exam. Jessie's passion for sports and football led her to work for international law firms FC Barcelona and the UEFA. In 2020, Jessie founded 𝐬𝐡𝐶 Sports, a boutique sports law firm based in Barcelona. Jessie is also a mentor and lecturer at the International Business School Barcelona. So a very, very warm welcome, Jessie.
Hi, Rob. Thank you so much for the intro. Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone that's listening.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And before we dive into all your amazing projects and experiences to date, we do have a customary icebreaker question here on the Legally Speaking podcast, which is, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, what would you rate the hit TV series Suits in terms of its reality?
In terms of its reality, I thought you were going to say in terms of how much you enjoy the show. In terms of its reality, well, it's very far from my bed, I would say. Like, I don't think that that's what it's like. I mean, sports law is a specific discipline, but I would say like a 6, maybe. Maybe like in New York, there's some corporate law firms that actually work like that. But yeah, it's not as common over here, I would say.
Yeah. And okay, in terms of actually enjoying the show, what would you give it, just out of curiosity?
I'm like an 8.5, I guess. Like, I really, really like the show. I do feel like sometimes it's a bit repetitive, like season after season, like, and it's quite complex for like non-lawyers or law students, I would say. But for me as a lawyer, like, I aspire to be Rachel Zane. Like, I love the show. Not to get married to a prince though, but yeah, in general, like, I really like the show.
Good stuff. Well, I aspire to be more like Harvey every day, so we can both try our best with that. But we must move swiftly on. So let's start at the beginning, Jessie. Would you mind telling our listeners a bit about your background and journey?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so basically your introduction already summarized my background, but to tell you guys a bit more. So yeah, so basically I'm Dutch actually, and I went to law school in Holland, but I always knew that I wanted to live abroad and study abroad and do something other than work, you know, like a typical 9-to-5 office job. So I was kind of looking for like my path, I would say, because most people that go to law school, they have a very clear vision of, okay, I want to be a specific type of lawyer, maybe like a criminal lawyer, or work for like in human rights or whatever. And I didn't really have that. Like, I liked a little bit of every type of law, but I couldn't just find one niche. So somehow I ended up doing some internships abroad, and I did a master's degree in legal practice here in Spain and Madrid in order to qualify and sit for the Spanish bar exam. And eventually I kind of stumbled across sports law during one of my internships, and that's when I really kind of first realized that it was possible to combine my passion for sports and my passion for law into a career, basically. Did a master's degree in sports law after that, and that's how I kind of entered the sports industry by working for, like you mentioned before, FC Barcelona and UEFA. And after that, as I mentioned before, I always knew that I didn't want like a typical office job, and I really enjoy entrepreneurship. And I guess also because I was in touch with a lot of startups while working at Barcelona and UEFA, since I worked for the Innovation Hub, this kind of like entrepreneurial spirit like awoke in me. And that's when I decided to just go out there and establish my own law firm together with 2 other business partners. And yeah, ever since we've been working on the law firm, I've been doing a lot of side projects, and it's been really, really, really cool. It's been challenging, but I'm very happy so far with the outcome.
Yeah, and you're doing so many amazing things, and you know, what an inspiring story to lots of our listeners there. And you touched on it, but I mentioned in the introduction as well, you did graduate from Tilburg Law School in the Netherlands, and then in 2019 continuing your education in Madrid, then Rio and Barca. You know, how did you find studying abroad, and where did you enjoy studying the most?
Yeah, so I really, like I said before, I love traveling. I love studying abroad, living abroad, and I've been living in Spain for the past, I would say 5 or maybe almost 6 years now, I guess. But it's definitely challenging. Like, it wasn't easy. First of all, because I was studying law, and law in my native language is already hard, as most of you lawyers and law students can probably relate to. It's already hard to study that in your own language, let alone in a foreign language. So I actually studied, for example, I did 6 months in Brazil. I did international law as part of my exchange program there in Portuguese, and I already spoke some Spanish before. So I thought, okay, I'll be fine. But once I got there, I realized, okay, Portuguese law is very complex. Law in Portuguese is very complex. But it was an amazing experience. Like, I absolutely loved it. I was in Rio de Janeiro for 6 months. And then the same thing happened in Spain. Like, I remember the first day entering class of this master's in legal practice, which was fully in Spanish. And I was the only foreign student, because that was the master's that was required to sit for the bar exam and to become a lawyer in Spain, basically. And I just had no clue what they were talking about. Like, they were mentioning words that I had zero understanding of. Like, I did not understand what they were talking about. So I was translating things at the same time while trying to listen and while trying to understand things. And even the Spanish students were having a hard time, pass exams. And I had to do everything in a foreign language. So it was definitely challenging because of the language barrier, and in general, because you're living like a whole new life, basically. And it's also, you need to have like your new social circle and all of that. So it's like a lot of energy, but it's also rewarding. And once you actually pull through and you manage to pass those exams, like, you feel really good and you feel really like self-secured, I would say. So it was a really, really enriching experience for me. And to answer your question, what was the most fun one? I guess for me, it was Brazil. And after that, now Spain, Barcelona, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Brazil. I was there a few years ago. I'm a massive fan of Rio as well. And yeah, just all around Lapa and Ipanema and all around there is such cool places. And Barcelona is also a place I love going to holiday and visit. So very jealous that you've get to spend lots of time there. So I guess you've obviously gone on to establish your own firm, but you've also been very proactive prior to doing that. And it'd be great to tell our listeners a bit more about your journey. So, you were a legal intern, I believe, in Spain for a few months. So as building up your CV, so to speak, can you explain the type of work you were assigned to there and some of the things you got involved with?
Yeah, definitely. So I worked for 2 law firms before. I worked for a Dutch law firm and for a German law firm, and I did a little bit of everything. I guess that's what they make interns do. So I helped out with it because they didn't have any specific focus area of law. They were just like an all-round law firm. One of them was working in Dutch, of course, which was great. So we were mostly helping Dutch clients basically deal with whatever legal assistance they needed here in Spain. And the other one was like a German law firm, but we were actually working in Spanish. And I touched upon everything, basically, like civil law, some contract law. We did I remember some flight compensation claims. Like, they made me do everything, but it was great for me because it was great to realize. And that's how I actually found sports law, because they made me do everything. I also ended up working, for example, on a sponsorship agreement between an athlete and a sponsor back then that they were dealing with, which was not very common because they didn't have a lot of sports law cases because they were not a specialized sports law firm. But still, somehow the case came to them. And that's kind of when I first realized, okay, sports law is a thing, because I had never heard about that back in law school. And yeah, so I got my own firm. So that's also why I realized that, because I had worked at these firms that offer all these like multidisciplinary firms, basically, I really wanted to make Sensato be different. And I really wanted to focus only on sports law and really stand out in that area. Yeah, so that's why basically now we offer legal assistance and representation and dispute resolution services to athletes, coaches, to any stakeholder in the sports industry, basically.
Yeah, wow. And talking of assistants, you were a legal assistant at Brothers Law, and you drafted lawsuits and contracts in English, Spanish, and Dutch. So did you find drafting documents in different languages challenging? And what skills did you learn while sort of doing that in the process?
Yeah, I did find it challenging. I think I underestimated it a little bit in the beginning because I spoke like conversational Spanish. My English has always been okay, I would say, and obviously Dutch is my native language. So I thought, okay, I'll be fine. Like the first day I came in there, I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll draft whatever you guys need. But the phrasing is different. Like the grammar is important. Also, the type of language you're using is very different from conversational language. So it was definitely challenging. And actually, it's funny that nowadays, for example, because I work a lot in English and sometimes in Spanish here, because I have some domestic clients here, it's actually much harder now for me to draft in Dutch, which is crazy. And I always, whenever people tell me like, you know, when foreigners live abroad for a while and then they're like, oh, I'm having difficulties like speaking my native language, I was always like, oh God, how can you say that? Like, it's your native language. Like, I don't believe you. I felt like they were like bragging, you know, but now I'm actually encountering the same issue. Like, I actually have much more issues drafting or even like writing proper like legal emails in Dutch. I'm like finding myself like, okay, like, you know, I need a minute to like phrase this properly. So yeah, I think that's like the perks, but also the advantages and disadvantages of speaking multiple languages.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, definitely highly talented. That's for sure. And so we must talk about sports law, because obviously you are a sports lawyer, and lots of people, you know, I speak to would love to be a sports law. And you've talked a bit about your sort of where it stemmed from, but where did your true passion for sports stem from, and what inspired you particularly to pursue a career in sports?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have always, like, I grew up in a very, very football oriented family. Like, they're all massive. When I say football, I mean soccer. Well, whatever word you guys want to use for it. Family. So I've grown up watching that basically every single day in the house. I was on different sports teams. I always liked being active. I was not particularly good at any specific sports. Unfortunately, I couldn't pursue a career as an athlete, even though now I've gotten into tennis. And I wish I pursued that before, but I guess it's never too late for a new hobby. So I always felt like it's just such a fun environment and it's so different from anything else. And for example, one thing that actually made me really want to pursue is just like the enthusiasm of the fans and the passion and the fact that sports unite so many different cultures and like basically people from different generations, different genders, different backgrounds, religions, whatever. Like sports makes all those people come together. And I think that's so beautiful. And I remember, for example, being in Brazil, and I was working as a volunteer at one of the favelas. And we had like a soccer project for girls to get more into sports and to basically just help the community a bit. And that's when I first realized like the impact that sport really has on individuals and on different societies and people from all different type of backgrounds and how powerful it is. And I thought, okay, if I could work in that, like it's so beautiful. And even though, yeah, you may not be helping people in the same way as you would when you're not, you know, you have someone on death row and you're fighting for criminal justice and stuff. But still, like, I feel like there is so much passion behind it. And being able to fight for these causes is also really beautiful. And it's really fun and it's a fun context. And like I love going to the stadium and feeling the different atmospheres, like especially now that I'm traveling a lot and I'm going to a lot of different matches and games, like just being there and like witnessing the enthusiasm of all those people is beautiful. So yeah, I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but that's basically my passion for sports.
Absolutely. And you're talking my language because I have a real passion for all sports, you know, rugby, football, cricket, you name it. I also like my tennis as well. So I'm glad you're getting into tennis. And I'm a very big Liverpool FC fan. And I'm hoping somehow we can do the quadruple this season, although the Premier League is slipping away from us a little bit. Yeah. And Real Madrid isn't going to be easy in the final. So we shall see. But I'd love to talk about some of the hurdles you faced as a sports lawyer and how you've overcome them. You've been quite honest in saying there has been some challenges. So, you know, what have been some of those hurdles you faced and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like honesty is super important. And one of the main issues, and that's directly touching upon this question that you're asking, is I think the imposter syndrome. And I talk about this quite a lot. And sorry for the people that are listening to multiple podcasts, because I always touch upon this subject. But I think it's important because one of the main hurdles I would say is the fact that I felt like I wasn't an expert enough, or I wasn't knowledgeable enough, or I wasn't good enough to open my own practice and to work as a sports lawyer. Because I'm young, maybe because I'm a woman, maybe because I haven't had 20 years of experience in law because I'm still young. So I felt like that was a massive hurdle that I had to overcome mentally myself. And that, like, if I had done that before, I guess I would have, like, my path would have been a bit different, but it's fine. Like, I'm still young. But yeah, definitely feeling like, there's other people out there that are more that are better at it, and like why would people choose to work with me? So I think that's that's one of the things I had to overcome. Then also obviously being a woman in a rather male dominated industry, and of course now women's football is becoming more and more popular, and there's more and more women working in the industry. But a few years back it wasn't really like that, and even nowadays like the ratio is still very disproportionate. So that's also something that I'm trying to kind of use to my advantage now by being like different, because it makes me stand out, etc. But at the same time, like it's definitely not easy. And what else? And also for my my law firm, like in general, I think I kind of underestimated the difficulty of actually building the practice and getting clients on board. Because I remember the first day we launched the website and stuff, I was like, okay, from now on, like, I guess the clients are just going to come to us like every day. They're going to come knocking on our door, and like we're going to be, I don't have to do much. I don't have to be proactive. They're going to come to me. And it wasn't like that. Like I remember the first day I didn't have anything to do, and I was like, okay, shit, I have to put myself out there, be proactive, and actually like go out there and find my clients. That's actually also when I started being more active on social media, because I realized that, because I was never really a big fan of social media before, but now I've come to realize the power that it has to connect with people from all over the world, basically, and also to promote yourself. And that's also fine. And that's also something that I had to learn, that, I was always very cautious as to, I didn't want to promote myself too much or brag too much, or, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to undersell myself, I guess, or downsize myself. And now lately I've come to kind of, realize that that's not how it works, and that in order for people to find you, you need to allow them to find you, and you need to promote yourself and your achievements and all of that. So yeah, I would say those are kind of the hurdles that I've come across.
Yeah, and you make so many great points, and you're absolutely right, because if you're not visible in the modern world, you're invisible. And we talk about this a lot on the show, that I'm a big advocate of social media, particularly for the legal community. I bang on about the importance of LinkedIn, but also there's a huge legal community on Instagram and TikTok, and these are the places where if you embrace it and put yourself out there, you'll win clients, you'll build a brand, and it's good for your business and good for your personal brand. So I'm really glad that you touched on that, and you do produce some really good high quality content as well. And in May of 2018, you did work part of the Innovation Hub and Strategy and Knowledge Department for FC Barcelona. So can you explain what your role was and what responsibilities you had there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I worked for the Innovation Hub, and basically what the Innovation Hub did, well, they had different layers, but they just kind of wanted to find ways, I would say, to improve the industry as a whole, and to come together and to share knowledge among all stakeholders, instead of like gatekeeping and keeping all the information to themselves. Because obviously these big clubs, they have a lot of, I would say, not secrets, but like best practices that maybe are not shared with other experts in other clubs. And they kind of wanted to turn that around and share all information with all stakeholders, but also share information with the world, with mainstream, with the public. And so we basically collaborated with a lot of startups. We organized startups basically to try and improve services. So for example, player performance, with like wearables and tracking devices, trying to gather more knowledge and more data in order to improve their performance. So we worked a lot with data analytics, but also with the sports nutritionists, for example, to try and and go a bit deeper into that and gain more knowledge and gain more under a bit better understanding of the reality of what the sports nutrition field in Europe was like. So we work with a lot of different clubs and try to kind of share all that information and improve everyone's best practices. And at the same time, we also run different conferences here in Barcelona, basically in order, like I said, to share all that knowledge also with the mainstream public, and in order to kind of educate and share the information with the next generation of professionals.
Yeah, and it's such meaningful work, and I'm so pleased again that you shed some light on that. Because I remember when we had David Jones, the Sky Sports presenter, come onto the show, and he was talking much in the same vein about, way clubs are looking to try and improve the industry and push for change and best practice. And it's great that you've given some examples there. I guess when you were at Barcelona, one of the best teams arguably in the world in terms of football, did you get the opportunity to watch plenty of matches?
I did, yeah. I went to the stadium as often as I could, especially living here. I've always gone to the stadium ever since. Even when I lived in Holland, our family would travel to Barcelona sometimes to watch matches. So I've been there a lot of times. But definitely while working there, it was an amazing experience for me. Also, it was kind of like living my dream, because I was like I'm a fan of FC Barcelona. I've always been. So for me to be able to work there and like at the same time after work be able to go to matches sometimes was amazing.
Ah, that's great. I was worried you were going to say you're a Real Madrid fan. So if you're a Barcelona fan, that's cool. That's okay. We haven't got any worries this year, so we're gonna avoid you in the final.
Time for a quick break from the show. You wouldn't leave a potential client waiting in your office for 3 days. But what about when it comes to returning potential clients' phone calls, emails, or even web inquiries? If you're not responding rapidly to those who inquire about your firm's services, you could be losing money, losing clients, and affecting your law firm's reputation. Thankfully, there's a resource from our sponsor Clio that can help you, called How to Grow Your Firm with Legal Client Intake. It's a free guide that will show you exactly how and why you should be automating your client intake process. Download your free copy at clio.com/UK/free intake guide. That's Clio, CLIO.com/UK/free intake guide. Now back to the show.
Okay, so we carry on sticking with football. You worked in strategy and innovation at UEFA as well. What were your experiences like at working there?
Yeah, so I was basically doing the same thing I was doing at Barca, but then at UEFA. So they kind of asked me to set up the same department, or help them set up a system and setting up the same department as they had already at Barca, because they were in close contact. That's also how I got the job. And it was amazing for me. Living in Switzerland, honestly, I have to say was difficult, especially coming from Spain. But we're being at the headquarters there and being able to go to, for example, Champions League draw, and being like in the center of all activities around football and all the tournaments taking place, and being like in the middle of everything was an amazing experience. And it was very enriching for me also to learn more about the sports industry, because before I had worked at Barca, but that was obviously seeing things from a club level and from their own perspective. And a club is much more commercial and revenue driven. And then going from a club level to a confederational level as UEFA governing body, obviously their missions and their values are very different. So it was very enriching also for me. And I think all that knowledge now that I gathered during those years working at Barca and UEFA, more on, like, I would say, the sports management side, has adds huge value now to my work, because it makes me understand the industry better and the stakeholders and what's at stake, more than just the legal code, so to say.
Yeah, no, and it's such valuable experience, and that you built up, and to the sort of present day. To in 2020, you did decide to combine your passion for sports, law, innovation, and entrepreneurship to be a founder of Sensato Sports Law, a boutique sports law firm, which I absolutely love, based in Barca. So, can you tell us more about your firm? I know you've touched on it, but just give us a bit more, and what types of matters you currently specialize in.
Yeah, definitely. We're based here in Barcelona, and one of the things that we're trying to do, because as I said before, like, obviously we can't compete with lawyers or with law firms that have been in the industry for 20 years, because I was basically a kid back then, 20 years ago. But so what we try to kind of differentiate ourselves in is in being adding different value. Like I said, first of all, the fact that we have a broader understanding of the industry, but also being a bit more innovative. And I guess that's because I worked in innovation for those years, just doing things slightly different, because innovation doesn't necessarily have to be about technology. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're doing things completely different, but just kind of trying to improve small processes, I guess, is what we do. So we try to communicate, for example, with our clients in their own native language if we can. We're trying to be more forward thinking. We don't do billable hours. We're trying to always be like 24/7 available on WhatsApp, FaceTime, whatever it is with our clients. And we're trying to have a very like client-centric approach. So some of the services that we offer now is basically two pillars. It's legal assistance. So anything from drafting contracts to advice on taxation, on, for example, on training. Well, you're not going to know these terms maybe, but training compensation and solidarity payments. It's like basically the type of payments that clubs get, like financial rewards for having trained a player during their youth, and then once they're transferred to another club in the future, those clubs still get paid. So yeah, we do those type of things. Also like intellectual property and transfer assistance. So whenever players transfer from one club to another, there's the agent, but then we are like a complementary service to help them with the contract negotiations and taking care of all the legal aspects. And then on the other hand, we do dispute resolution. So whenever there's a dispute between a player and a club, or a player and an agent, or an agent and a club, or a player and a sponsor, and these disputes happen all the time, then we also offer dispute resolution services.
Yeah, no, I can imagine though disputes happening quite a lot of times, particularly when there's egos involved as well.
And some money.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned there you support clients from both legal and business perspectives, and you've touched on some of the clients that you help. Have there been any memorable clients to date, or things that you have stuck with you since you set up?
Yeah, I mean, we've dealt with so many cases already in the past. I'm not a big fan of like putting names out there, unless the players like share it themselves on social media or whatever, just because I feel like it's part of my like confidentiality duty, I would say. But we've worked on a lot of interesting cases. For example, I've worked in some doping cases, which were very interesting because I had never done that before. So obviously getting into that was like a whole different ball game. And now we're really focusing also on the whole NFTs, metaverse, Web3 side of things, because we feel like if we want to stand out as an innovative young law firm, and that's a space that we need to get into. So we have quite some interesting projects going on there as well. And besides that, yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of interesting cases. I just can't think of anything now off the top of my head that I would say, okay, that was really interesting. I mean, everything for me in the beginning, the first few times I handled those cases, like even handling a transfer, that was very memorable for me. So yeah, it's all very fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you touched on NFTs and Web3, because that's something that I'm super passionate as well. I launched a Web3 consultancy called Virtual Insanity this year, which is trying to bridge the gap between the mainstream and the metaverse. And even our Legally Speaking podcast will be doing our first NFT drop soon for our community. And we're hoping to get a creator a coin attached to the show, and lots of sort of Web3 focused, community focused things. So I think it's super exciting times, and particularly speaking to people like you in the law who are taking your businesses from a Web 2 to Web 3 perspective, and all the excitement with that ahead. And we touched on this previously, but the power
that's amazing. Congrats. Sorry for interrupting, but that's really great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting times, and I think we're all still learners, with this, and it's so new and so exciting. And I remember joining one of your Zoom webinars recently where we were talking about that, and it was a fascinating discussion. But I just wanted to ask, because we touched on it a bit before around, social media, and you are active and you've built up very large followings on the likes of Instagram, tens of thousands of followers. What would you say, how do you use social media to build your practice, attract clients, and educate others about sports law?
Yeah, so that's something I'm still trying to figure out, honestly, to be completely honest. In the beginning, I felt like I was going to use it 100% professionally. So I was literally only publishing about cases that we won or didn't win or whatever, and educating people about, okay, this is the difference between an agent and a lawyer and stuff like that. But then I kind of realized that that's, I guess, a bit too boring for Instagram, for example, that videos and different type of content, like also showing a bit more of your personal life, that actually makes people relate to you more, and it shows them a different like facet or aspect of your life. And I guess it kind of builds like a more trustworthy relationship with the client. So then I kind of switched into more like showing a little bit more of my private life, not too much, but like different places I'm visiting, games I'm going to, doing sports and whatever. And I found that to work really well. So right now I'm just trying to keep it like a bit balanced. And yeah, I don't know. I've just been trying to post a bit more, connecting with more people. So actually engaging with some people. And besides Instagram, I would say, because Instagram is great, but for me, my main platform that I focus on, I would say, is LinkedIn. Actually, like I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I think there's so much potential there, and especially because it's a purely professional platform. Every connection could be beneficial to you in one way or another. And it's just a matter of kind of trying to engage more with your connections, I think. And actually recently I launched this initiative of setting up like different time slots on Thursdays and Fridays to connect with my connections. So I basically put like a Calendly link, and anyone that's interested in chatting with me for like 15 minutes or whatever, they could like sign up, and like I would ask them to elaborate a little bit on the purpose of the call. And I would filter it out a little bit, but that has helped me so much already to like, meet new people that before I would have never spoken to, because I have like, I don't know, like 6,000 or 7,000 connections on LinkedIn, but I probably know about 0.001% of all of them, So it's really about trying to like tighten or deepen those relationships and publishing content that's valuable for others, so they start interacting with you. And then from there on, you kind of establish your own authority, I would say, and that eventually will lead clients to find you.
Yeah, I agree. And everyone who knows me on the show, LinkedIn is my home and one of my favorite platforms as well. And I completely echo what you've said there, and, building those connections. And even, we're a connection moving to a collaboration. I think collaborating with people in different forms, be it podcasting, whatever it may be. And, LinkedIn is just giving so many people opportunities to become creators and community builders now. They've got newsletter features. They've got an audio feature, which actually I'm working with LinkedIn on as their version of sort of LinkedIn audio. They're giving people LinkedIn Lives. They've got creator mode. There's so many features that the platform's now releasing. So definitely take heed on what Jessie's saying, and how lawyers and modern lawyers are utilizing that to build community, build their brands, attract clients, collaborate. All important things as we move forward in this digital online world we live in. But Jessie, as I mentioned in the intro, you keep busy. So you're also a lecturer.
Yes.
And so can you tell us a bit more about that? And, I believe you're responsible for the module on international sports law and governance. So, what do you most enjoy about teaching?
Yeah, so that's not something that I like had envisioned before. I guess maybe also because I felt like usually teachers or professors are like older and with more like experience. But I think one of the things that these type of schools like about me, because I do several guest lectures in different schools as well, is the fact that I'm like relatable. And that's also what I enjoy most, is the fact that I kind of try to make the students relate to me as much as possible and see that, you don't have to be 6 years old to be working in this industry, that, by taking or making certain decisions, you can also develop your legal career. And so I enjoy sharing my journey and my learnings and my experience with others, because I feel like, and especially the things that I wish I was taught myself in law school or back in university or do my master's or whatever, like especially also more the practical side of things, because I feel like there's a lot of focus in school on all the theory and like all of that is great, but in order to kind of go out there and make it in the real world, like you need some practical advice as well. And so I always really enjoy sharing those like tips and tricks and best practices and whatever with the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's great to have the theory, but you also need the practical and the reality as well. And you've also created 2 online courses to share your knowledge and experience and industry insights. So can you tell us more about the courses?
Yeah, definitely. So basically that kind of happened very naturally as well. I just got so many, at some point when I started posting more on LinkedIn, I got so many messages from so many students asking me for tips on getting into the industry, either of, in general, the sports industry, or in particular into sports law. Again, because it's something that is not really there's not much awareness about. A lot of people don't even know what sports law is. Most law schools don't teach you anything about sports law, the opportunity of becoming a sports lawyer. And so it's quite difficult. Like even if you Google how to become a sports lawyer or how to work in sports, it's not that straightforward. So I think people really like to speak to other people one-on-one. And so in the beginning, I started like messaging all these people back one-on-one, or then copy pasting messages, and they would ask me to get on a call to go into more detail. And I just didn't have the time. But at the same time, I felt like I wanted to help them because I had been in their shoes myself. Like I had been there messaging others, asking them like, what does your day-to-day look like as a sports lawyer? What does sports law even mean? Like which areas of law does sports law touch upon? How to build a network in the industry, how to find clients, and all of that. So I felt like, okay, how can I scale my my learnings and share those with others, basically on a bigger scale? And so that's when I came across online courses. And so I have one course that is called the Sports Career Guide, which is basically an online course for anyone that wants to work or aspires to work in the sports industry, but needs like practical insights and advice on the different job prospects that you have in working in sports. Because I think there's a lot of people that don't even know like the different options you have. How to get there, how to build your personal brand, how to network, how to stand out in job interviews and all of that. And then the other one is focused purely on sports law, which is basically like a course on how to become a sports lawyer. So I share my own journey, everything that I learned, everything I did to get to where I am today, and everything I wish I had known before. And again, this one is also like, it has some theory. It has like, I speak about the most important sports regulations and FIFA and all of that, but it also has like 50% focuses on the more practical side of things, and all the things that I mentioned before about how to actually get into it. Because like you said, knowledge is great, but something more is required. And also a lot of different soft skills are required, such as networking, which is again, something they don't teach you in school. And is certainly undervalued by many. So that's how those courses came about. And so far I've had very positive feedback. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would strongly encourage people, if you are thinking about this, to check out those courses. And I guess just before we sort of wrap up, what would be, you mentioned it's hard to Google, how to become a sports lawyer, and, there'll be a lot contained in those courses that you've mentioned, but, what would be some of your top tips for people, maybe aiming to be a sports lawyer or maybe looking to transition into sports law? What would be some of like your top 3 tips?
Yeah, so I always say that to become a sports lawyer, you basically need like the perfect cocktail, or not the perfect cocktail, but you need to work on establishing yourself in 3 different areas. So you definitely need knowledge. So that means, you can consult free resources. Like, for example, you can actually read like FIFA decisions online to get a better understanding of what a FIFA decision looks like. Then you need experience, or relevant sports experience, which is, it's difficult to find because a lot of sports law firms, they may not be hiring and there's not that many of them, but that's why you need to find a way to stand out. Not least, you need a network. So you need to somehow, and you can start from scratch, because I had 0 connections. Like none of my family members work in sports. I didn't know anyone that worked in sport. I had 0 advantages or whatever. And somehow I managed to build a network, and I'm still building it. And that's what people need to start doing as well. So, for example, being active on LinkedIn, sharing posts, publishing your own opinions, starting a blog, doing anything to attract people to connect with you or to want to connect with you, and then proactively reach out to mentors and connect with those. So I would say like a combination of knowledge, experience, and network. Yeah,
really sound advice. And you're absolutely right, because as cliche as it sounds, your network is your net worth. So the more that you invest in that and building out those networks, the more opportunities that will come your way. Jessie, if our listeners, which I'm sure they will certainly be inspired following our conversation today, or they want to know more about sports law or your firm, what's the best way for them to contact you? Feel free to shout out any social media handles or website links, and we'll also share them with this episode for you too.
Perfect. Yeah. So I love connecting with aspiring sports lawyers. Like, I absolutely love it. So please do reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and I have my own website. And it's basically my full name. So it's JessieEngelhart.com. That's my website. You can contact me through there. You can check out my course through there, my law practice, all of that. And then on LinkedIn, on Instagram, I'm the same. So it's just Jessie Engelhart. Engel, not L-E, but Well, we can share the links, and yeah, I look forward to connecting with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, Jessie. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. So on behalf of all of us from the Legally Speaking podcast, I'd like to wish you lots of continued success with your career, your firm, and future pursuits. But for now, from all of us, over and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you like the content here, why not check out our world-leading content and collaboration hub, the Legally Speaking Club, over on Discord. Go to our website, www.legallyspeakingpodcast.com, for the link to join our community there. Over and out.